What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You guys already know what it is. It's draft season all year long, and today we are doing our first way too early 2024 NFL mock draft. It's never too early to start looking at the next NFL draft. Now, I am doing this on PFF. I do typically do it on the Draft Network. However, the website was bugging today, so we are here on PFF. And we do have our own custom order here. So a majority of the mock draft simulators that you guys see are using betting odds to create the order. But what I've done is I've done my own record prediction, as well as just looking at things from a roster perspective and kind of combining those two things to avoid too much of a bias, from my preferences, to make this list and draft order. So starting off here with the Arizona Cardinals, who we think are going to, or majority of the people, including myself, think will own the number one overall pick, just because Kyler Murray probably won't return somewhere between till week 11 to 13, I would say, because of that injury he suffered last year. So there's going to be a lot of struggle through the first half of the season, and maybe the entire season for this Arizona Cardinals team, who don't have a good roster at all, right, when you look at the offense and the defensive side, and they don't have their starting quarterback with a rookie head coach. It's just going to be a recipe for disaster this year. So, despite all that, and I know that there are two very good quarterbacks on the board at this current moment in time. However, I am going to go with who I think is going to be the best player available when this draft time comes around. It's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver out of Ohio State, son of Marvin Harrison, who was a wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, back when Peyton Manning was still there. So, look, Marvin Harrison Jr., why am I doing this? Why am I not taking the quarterback? It's a gut feeling, right, part of it, and it's that although these quarterbacks are very good in Caleb Williams and Drake May, and we're going to go through some others later on in this video, I do think that they are going to stay committed to Kyler Murray for the time being, and I think they're going to take the approach of, hey, let's build around him right now, build this current roster, and if we find out in 2 to 3 years that, hey, this isn't the guy in the future, then maybe they'll try and do something with him. But they just signed that extension with him, and I know it's not the current front office that gave him that extension, but he has one nonetheless, and he's signed all the way through 2028. So I just don't know if now is the time that they give him up, despite having these quarterbacks. It's a good debate to have, really, discussing who would be the number one overall pick if the Cardinals do own it, like many of us think they will. But right now, I think they're going to go with Kyler. I think they're going to go into next season, the 2024 NFL season, and say, hey, let's give Kyler a fair shot under our offensive schemes and see what he does for an entire year, right? And then give him a good weapon to go along with that. And this is a team that doesn't really have that true wide receiver one right now, right? Marquise Brown, we think, can be that, but hasn't shown that yet. And Rondale Moore is primarily a slot receiver, so they need that difference maker. And I think that would be huge for Kyler Murray. So Marvin Harrison, who I think is the number one overall player that isn't a quarterback in this year's draft, goes number one overall. Now, the number two overall pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is a no-brainer. It's Caleb Williams. There is no quarterback on the roster right now that you're going to say, hey, this guy is going to be the future. Right now, maybe one of these guys, Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield, has that Geno Smith season, but I just don't see it in them, really, and I don't think this team is going to be good at all. So we're going to give him Caleb Williams here. I think he's the clear-cut number one overall pick at this moment in time, right? I mean, we have to take into consideration this is a way too early mock draft. Free agency period is going to happen, and players are going to progress this season. Some are going to regress, and so a lot's going to change from what it looks like right now. So a lot of it is just projections, but Caleb Williams, I mean, this is the Heisman Trophy winner last year. This is by far the best quarterback in college football and one of the better quarterback prospects we've seen. I mean, we're hearing comparisons to him with Mahomes, which is absolutely absurd. But when you take certain aspects of his game, like his improvisational skills and his ability to just make those big-time throws and say, how did this guy make this throw? I mean, it doesn't even look physically possible. That's what Caleb Williams does, and that's why he's being such a hyped prospect. I think the expectation of him being like Mahomes is a bit absurd, but again, it's understandable, and I know what people are saying. We just can't take it out of proportion. Now, here for the Washington Commanders, we're going to go with the next guy, That's Drake May. Drake May had a phenomenal season last year for the Tar Heels, and I think he did a lot to boost his draft stock. I think if he could have declared for the NFL draft this past season, he definitely would have done it. But the expectations are high for him this season. I think he's going to continue to have the success that he had last year. Just the arm strength, right, stands out to you. His ability to throw on the run and also use his mobility. So again, there is a lot to like with these two guys. And I'm not a huge Sam Howell fan, right? So there could be some of you Commanders fans watching this saying, hey, we think Sam Howell's going to have a breakout year, right? We saw what he did in that season finale against Dallas last year. It can only go up from here, but I don't really feel as strong about him at the moment. I understand that he was a projected first-round pick 2 years ago, ended up being a fifth-round pick this past NFL draft. I've just never been a huge Sam Howell fan, so I think they're going to replace him with a guy from the same school, but has played at a much higher level and has a much higher ceiling than Sam Howell currently does. It is just a disaster right now, and I think the big reason why they weren't aggressive this offseason to try and get a quarterback is because ownership was turning over, and because that is the most important position when it's all said and done, right? I think they want to have everything set from an ownership standpoint before they make that big-time decision. So they have a year to wait. They have a year to evaluate Sam Howell. And again, this is just me projecting. I don't think Sam Howell is going to be that great this year, but I think Drake May is going to continue to have the success that he did last season. He's in a pro-style offense there at UNC, so you can't knock him for that. He's playing extremely well, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be in the top five if a team who needs a quarterback is sitting there. Now, this is where things kind of shake up a little bit here, right? And again, this is just me projecting who I think is going to have big-time seasons here. I'm going to go with Quinn Ewers here. Now, he's ranked here, number 30 on the board. I don't care about these rankings, right? Quinn Ewers, I expect him to have a huge season, and a reason for that is we take a look at this wide receiver group here, right? Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell. These are two guys that I'm going to have in this first round, in this way too early mock draft. I think this Texas team is trending upwards. Now, I'm not going to say that it's Texas's year and they're going to be back, right? Because just like the Dallas Cowboys, they say that every year and it never happens. But I do expect big things from these players, just looking at them as prospects for this upcoming NFL draft. I think him having two NFL caliber wide receivers, Quinn Ewers, I think is going to elevate his game tremendously. And I've been a huge fan of his since high school. I've had really high expectations for him, and although he hasn't met them yet, right, and he didn't have a full season last year because he was hurt at Texas, I think this is a big opportunity for him to put his name on watch and have him considered one of the better quarterback prospects in this year's draft, where it's a really damn good class, and I think one that has a lot of depth as well. So this is another interesting conversation that we can have, but I do think because of those reasons, right? I mean, Texas has a good roster right now, so I think Quinn Ewers is going to benefit from that, and he's a talented player on his own, right? Just his ability to sling the ball along the yard just effortlessly, right? I mean, NFL scouts are going to love that, and so I think if you really need a quarterback, this is someone that you're going to feel comfortable taking, even if Williams and May are off the board. Now, here at number 5, and if I do look off to the side, I do have my list here just so I don't mess it up and don't have to improvise. I thought out this draft ahead of time, so that's that. Number 5 here, this is the Chicago Bears, and this is going to be their pick. Now, I know a lot of people are expecting a Justin Fields breakout season, and their roster looks better on paper. I think it's going to take some time for all of them to gel, and I am a Justin Fields believer as well, even though I am a Minnesota Vikings fan. I do think that there is a lot to like with this game. Didn't have much to work with last year, but did what he could. So I just don't see it happening yet, but it could be for the better, where this team can really build through the draft and really get the pieces they need to take themselves over the top. So for this pick, we are going to go Dallas Turner from Alabama at the edge rusher spot. They didn't address that position as much as I would have liked to see them do in this previous offseason, and I want to see them I don't want to see them do that because I want to beat the Bears twice a year if I can, but the logical move to do here is build along that defensive line, especially at the edge rusher position, right? I think the interior is all right at the current moment, and the edge rusher positions, they just need a lot of help. Like DeMarcus Walker right now, Trevis Gibson, we got to get that addressed right now. So Dallas Turner, big-time player at Alabama, and I think is going to be the first player off the board at the edge rusher position in the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, here, number 6, this is the pick that the Arizona Cardinals got from the Houston Texans, where they traded up to get Will Anderson in this previous draft. And I think that was a genius move there. Some people are not as high on Will Anderson. I mean, a handful of people. I know a lot of people love Will Anderson, but a handful of people are still a little bit skeptical on him. I think he is a tremendous edge rusher prospect, and I think DeMeco Ryans wanted to get his version of Nick Bosa in the building as soon as he could, and the opportunity was staring at them right in the face. So they got their franchise guy. They went out and got their franchise edge rusher. I think they can go into next year's draft not having this pick and still feel comfortable because they do have another one from the Cleveland Browns via the Deshaun Watson trade. So after following that entire mess, here we are with the Arizona Cardinals here with the number 6 overall pick. And why this looks good for the Arizona Cardinals is because if they do land this pick that's in the top 10, I mean, you got another haul of picks as well, right, behind that. So I think Arizona Cardinals fans can get behind this. And what we're going to do here at number 6 overall, I was considering taking an edge rusher. However, last minute, I am deciding to give them Kool-Aid McKinstry. We're going back-to-back Bama players here. Kool-Aid McKinstry, right? I mean, there's talks from NFL scouts about him potentially being at the same caliber as a guy like Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley. Both of those guys went extremely high in their respective draft. Kool-Aid McKinstry still does have that type of potential in him and is a big-time player at Alabama right now. So he does have the potential to go this high. We have him there going to the Cardinals, who have little to no cornerback talent at all, let alone talent on the overall roster. Here for the LA Rams, we're going to go with Joe Alt. At the current moment, this is the consensus number 1 overall tackle in this upcoming draft, and understandably so. This is one of the better players in all of college football. It doesn't matter what position you're playing. So I think when you're drafting in the top 10, right, I understand that the NFL is turning into more of this, hey, how much upside does this guy have? What is his ceiling? How high is it? You know, where can we get with this guy? But Joe Alt, I think, has a high ceiling, and he already is that dude at Notre Dame. And for a team that desperately needs some offensive line help, right, this is going to be the solution right here early on in the draft with Joe Alt. Now, we're going to go back-to-back tackles here, and you want to talk about upside, right? We're going to go with Olu Fashanu right here out of Penn State. And, you know, the thing is, right, I don't think this Colts offensive line looks bad on paper, but I think they could definitely use an upgrade. Now, Bernard Raymond, the second-round pick out of Central Michigan last year, is going to get the start this year, right, alongside with Braden Smith at the other tackle position. But what I could see, and, you know, he could have a good season. I just don't think it's going to be over the top. We can have Olu Fashanu play that other tackle spot and move Bernard Raymond into guard, and I think that might be better for his career. So this is a guy with tremendous upside, right? You just talk about having that aggressiveness and that want to just hit someone, play in and play out. That's the player that you're going to get with Olu Fashanu right here for the Indianapolis Colts. Here at number 9, now this is a pick that the Chicago Bears got after trading the number 1 pick back with the Carolina Panthers. So this would be Carolina's pick right here. And at number 9, we're going to go with Brock Bowers. Now, I mean, you could argue this is the best tight end prospect that we've ever seen. And he is going later than a guy like Kyle Pitts. However, when it just comes to overall being able to block, being a receiver, running after the catch, right? I mean, when you see him run with the football in his hands, you get flashes of Travis Kelce, right? And I'm not saying Brock Bowers is going to be Travis Kelce, but from what we've seen so far at in the college football level, this is by far the best tight end, right? And then coming into the draft, it's like, okay, this is the full package. This guy is pretty much good at everything that you're going to ask of an NFL tight end. So I don't like Cole Kmet. I've never liked him since he came into the NFL. I think Brock Bowers would be a massive upgrade, right? And for a team that really only has DJ Moore as like a significant receiver, and like Claypool I don't like. And don't get me wrong, Mooney has his moments, but he's never going to excel in his career to get anything past what he's already achieved, in my opinion. I know that might be kind of a hot take, but I just don't see him being like that true wide receiver too, right? I think he's going to excel most as a third option. So that's that. Anyway, let's not cause too much controversy here. But Brock Bowers can seriously be that second weapon that Justin Fields needs. in terms of his progression, and Fields is progressing a lot slower than many of the other quarterbacks, right? I mean, we're still hyping him up, and he's heading into year 4 now. I've lost count. But, if you have DJ Moore and then Brock Bowers over the middle, that could be huge for him. All right, New York Giants. We're going to go here at the safety position because aside from Xavier McKinney, there just isn't really a ton that I'm a fan of. Now, they do have him listed here on PFF as a cornerback. We're going to go with Javon Bullard. He is making that transition to safety, right? And I do think that they could use that spot. Now, his versatility, because he is also a nickel back, right? You can put him all over the field, right? And I think that's kind of what they're doing already with Xavier McKinney, a huge reason why this defense had so much success this past season. So this could be a very versatile pick right here, and a guy who can excel at many different positions. Did a great job last year on that Georgia team. So I expect him to go pretty high in this year's NFL draft. Maybe not top 10, but I do expect him to go in the first round. Here at pick number 11, the New England Patriots, man, it's getting interesting there. I mean, they've got to start winning some games because right now it's looking like Brady was the reason why. But maybe some of you guys already knew that. We're going to go with a tackle here in J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Bama doing what they normally do. 3 guys already taken in the top 11 here. They're going to go tackle here. I thought they were going to do that in this year's draft, but I guess they're fine with having Riley Reiff at their other tackle spot. They really need to get that position addressed because, again, even if Riley Reiff does play well this year, he's not the answer for the long-term future. You need to get a guy in there to protect whoever it is at quarterback. For the time being, it's Mac Jones, who I'm not a huge fan of. Damn, I'm just throwing out my opinion for a lot of these players, huh? But anyway, that's besides the point. Tackle right here, J.C. Latham, like I said, they don't have a guy right there for the long term, so you got to go and bring a guy in right there for the New England Patriots there at 11. At 12, we're going to go with our second wide receiver in this year's class. Let's go with Xavier Worthy right here. Now, I haven't made an official list for my top receivers in this year's class. However, what I've seen from Worthy so far, I mean, this dude has made some plays, right? And this past season was a great example of that. The amount of times that I just saw him deep down the field, completing that reception, getting in the end zone, and just absolutely getting the crowd buzzed. I mean, Xavier Worthy, I think, is going to be a huge difference maker. And, right, Will Levis, we don't expect him to play this year, but he's going to head into his second year potentially being the starter, right? Nothing is for certain yet, but this team, aside from Treylon Burks, doesn't really have a great wide receiver. I think this guy is going to end up being better than Treylon Burks if you get him on the team. And for a league that's really transitioning to a passing league, despite having Derrick Henry, you got to have guys who can make plays in the big moments because you get your chunk yards through the passing game in the current NFL. So we're going to go Xavier Worthy right here. I think the pick just makes way too much sense, right? A team that doesn't have really good wide receiver talent gets a really talented wide receiver and helps whoever is the quarterback, whether it's Tannehill or Levis. It's going to progress either of their games big time. Okay, moving on here to the Green Bay Packers. I didn't even consider an offensive player because Jordan Love's the only one that they've taken in the last, 2 decades? I don't even know. So they're going to go defense here as they normally do. We're going to go Kalen Bullock here out of USC. Right now, it's Jonathan Owens and Darnell Savage, if I'm not wrong. But either way, they do need a safety, right? Because I mean, they did sign Jonathan Owens. I just don't think that that's going to be the long-term answer there. But Kalen Bullock, the amount of range that he provides in his game is tremendous. Super athletic guy in the secondary and is going to be able to cover the entire length of the football field. So I like Kalen Bullock here. Hate to give him to a division rival here. And for anyone who is a believer in Jordan Love, I'm not, and that's the reason why the Packers are up here at 13. Whether he does become a good player or not, I just don't see it coming fully together this year, right? I mean, we saw Aaron Rodgers play with this roster, right? The 3-time MVP. Even he couldn't get it together, right? And I know a lot of that has to do with the wide receivers being rookies. It's their first year in the system. Yeah, the continuity is going to help slightly, but I just don't see Jordan Love taking this team over the top at the current moment, right? And I think there's going to be a lot of hiccups along the way because this is really his first year starting. So you could, in a way, consider this his rookie NFL season. because he hasn't really played him. He's played 2 games, right? So that's that. But I just don't see it going anywhere like in the playoffs or something like that. Here we go. New Orleans Saints. I'm going to go with the interior of the defensive line here, and we are going to go with Michael Hall out of Ohio State. Now, guys, let's not get too influenced here, right, by the rankings. This is PFF's big board, and I mean, it's their opinion, right? So, and we have our own as well. So we're going to go with an interior guy here. I think they just need to continue to bolster up that inside just so that you don't get ran over in the trenches, right? You need some bigger bodies in the middle. So we're going to go Michael Hall here from the New Orleans Saints. Again, some of you guys might, and I want to bring that up because some of you guys might say, like, oh my God, why are you giving us the 40th ranked guy on the board? Like, this is just one website's rankings, right? And I have my own rankings too. Another website has their own. And it's a way too early mock draft. Like, we don't even know who's going to be good or not. I can guarantee you now that half of the guys in the first round that are projected here right now probably won't even be here when draft season is like truly around this next off season. So let's not get too pressed about those kind of things. Now, next year, number 15, we are going to go at the linebacker spot because it's a very thin linebacker group there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You don't have to worry about their outside linebackers. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, 2 extremely good edge rushers, but we are going to go with Jeremiah Trotter here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, like I mentioned, just there's little to no talent at that stand-up linebacker spot on the inside linebacker position, so they've really got to get that part addressed. I mean, I like what they have in terms of their outside linebackers that I just mentioned. The interior of the defensive line looks set, and then even your safeties really look good. So again, it's the secondary in terms of the cornerbacks and the linebackers that I think still need to be addressed and maybe get more youthed up. So Jeremiah Trotter right here in the middle of the first round I think would be a solid pickup. Here at 16, and this is interesting. Okay, I'm going to have to improvise because I just noticed that I got some things mixed up here. So what we're going to do here is take Jared Verse here for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Jared Verse, right, this is a guy who was potentially going to come in to this previous NFL draft in the 2023 season, decided to return to Florida State, and so he will be here in the 2024 NFL draft. This is a guy that was projected to go in the first round. Now, me personally, wasn't super high on him, right, in terms of being like a top 10 pick, and you know, that's what he's being hyped up to be in this 2024 NFL draft. You saw him, his overall rank, at least for PFF, was number 7. I don't really view him as that type of player, right? I see him more as a mid-first round pick, maybe even a late first round pick. So I do feel more comfortable seeing him here with Baltimore, a team that still needs an edge rusher, right? And you're hoping that guys like David Ojabo step up and play extremely well. I do think that they could use another guy there at the edge there in Baltimore. Here at 17, we are going to go with the safety position because Nasir Adderley retired. So we are going to go ahead here and take Andrew Makuba. Now, there are some other guys on the board that maybe we could have potentially taken, but I do think that they need that free range, free safety out there, right? Because Derwin James, they're asking him to do a lot, asking him to play a lot of man coverage, play down in the box. They're going to move him around, right? So you need a guy who can move around right there. Makuba at about 180, right? 6 feet, 180, right? He's going to have more of that free range ability that they asked out of Nasir Adderley. So I think that would be a good replacement. I don't think Alohi Gilman is that guy at safety. So we're going to go there. 18 here for the Miami Dolphins here. We're going to go with a tight end because they don't really have one at the current moment, right? So we're going to go with Jatavion Sanders here out of Texas. Again, like I mentioned, Texas I think is, they're going to bring out a lot of talent this year. So we're going to go tight end here, and they're looking for a guy who can provide blocking on the edge, right? Because Mike McDaniels comes from that Shanahan tree, right? And they want that tight end who's going to be able to set the edge and also be an effective playmaker in the passing game, right? And that's why they got rid of Gesicki, because Gesicki can't pass block, he can't run block, he can't block, period, right? So they want a guy who is more of a traditional tight end and is going to allow them to have a successful run game, which is so detrimental to the success of that offense. So we're going to go ahead and give the Miami Dolphins a tight end here. At number 19, we're going to go here with the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to go with Jerzon Newton. This is another guy that was considering declaring for the 2023 NFL Draft and didn't do so. I wasn't a huge fan of him. Again, there is a lot of hype around him and his progression here in the 2023 college football season, so he could definitely skyrocket up my board. Personally, I don't have him this high, but again, my mock draft is a healthy mix of what I think is going to happen and also what the NFL, draft community does as well. I'm trying to keep a balance of both at the current moment, and Jerzon Newton I know is a guy that's getting a lot of first round hype, so we're going to put him in here. Again, I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't know if he's up here in the first round like a lot of other people are saying, but I don't really mind putting him here. Again, this is another team that still could continue to address that interior of the defensive line. They didn't really do so early on. They went with Witherspoon. They went with Jackson Smith and Jigbo, which I think were two phenomenal picks for what it is. But again, they can wait an entire year, get a guy like Jerzon Newton. I think they'll be fine on the interior of the defensive line. Pair him up with Draymond Jones. We're all good. Okay, here we're going to go with another edge rusher here for the Atlanta Falcons, right? We just want to get younger in that position too. We're going to go with Chop Robinson here out of Penn State. Him and Olu Fashanu going at it in practice, so it's only going to make those two guys much better, and it's going to help them throughout the draft process. But right now, I believe it's Bud Dupree, Lorenzo Carter, Arnold Ebiketie, right? We want to get younger. We want to get more talented. So that's exactly what we're going to do here with this Chop Robinson pick here. It does say that they need a QB. However, I'm projecting Desmond Ridder to have a good season. I do see them potentially making the playoffs, right? And that's why they're this low. It's a very weak division. It's an open division. And I think Desmond Ridder is going to prove a lot of people wrong, right? I think what he did at Cincinnati and in terms of the talent that he possesses, right? Just really good decision maker. Works the pocket very well and doesn't really make too many mistakes. I think those are all going to lead towards success, especially if we're expecting this defense to be much better, right? In terms of like what the roster looks like right now, looks much better on paper. And you add a guy like Bijan Robinson too, I think it's going to be a huge help towards the development of Desmond Ridder. Now, speaking of a quarterback, the Minnesota Vikings need one, and lucky for them, right? I don't know if they're going to bring back Kirk Cousins next year. I don't think anyone knows, really. But they need to go out and get a quarterback. So we're going to go ahead here and take Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. I do expect if the Vikings do need a quarterback to trade up in the draft to get one. I can't imagine they'd sit here at 21, but I did want to do this mock draft without trades. So we're going to go ahead and take Michael Penix right here. Now, this one I'm a little bit iffy on. Even as a Vikings fan, I want a quarterback, but I just don't know if Penix is that guy. And this is definitely my own bias. I'm just not a huge fan of the lefty quarterbacks. We've seen lefty quarterbacks have success in the league, but I just don't feel comfortable with it. I really don't. So, but Michael Penix, right, had a great season last year at Washington. Put them back near the top of college football, right? I mean, they were a ranked team last year. They beat some very notable opponents. So Michael Penix has done a lot of great things. It definitely beneficial for him to transfer out of Indiana and go play for the Huskies. And they're looking to have a huge season too, right? You have McMillan and Odunze at the wide receiver spot. So this could be a really good offense here for the 2023 season for the Washington Huskies. Again, this is a team that's getting really hyped up. They think that they can make the college football playoff. It's going to be exciting. And if they do, I think that's going to be tremendous for the draft stock of Michael Penix if he leads that team all the way there. Okay, 22. Let's go with another wide receiver. Let's go Emeka Egbuka. Now, I would love to put him much higher because this is a very talented wide receiver. However, we saw a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba this past season go around the same range. And I think in terms of an athleticism standpoint, I think they kind of provide similar traits in that sense. Not exactly the same. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is a better player, but I don't see him going higher in the draft just because of those same reasons, right? I mean, you talk about the NFL transitioning. Again, I mentioned this before, transitioning to how much upside does this guy have, right? Just because he's limited from an athleticism standpoint, I don't think he's going to go as high as some people think. So I think here makes sense. Another team that needs some wide receiver help, he's going to go and provide that. And you pair him up with CJ Stroud again, you know you're going to get good production out of those two guys. Here at 23, Let's go with Kalen King out of Penn State. Penn State's going to be putting out a lot of talent in the first round this year. These guys, Olu Fashanu, Kalen King, and Chop Robinson, I expect all of them to go in the first round. Even not knowing what's going to happen in this upcoming college football season. But pair him up with Pat Surtain. You're going to have a lockdown duo right there in Denver. And we're going to go on a small run here with cornerbacks. We're going to go follow that up right here. Pair up a guy here with Campbell on the other side. We're going to go with Malachi Moore. Tyson Campbell had a huge year, breakout season there for the Jacksonville Jaguars, so I'm sure that they're super excited about that. Pair him up with Malachi Moore, and again, another strong duo there down south for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And yes, we are going to go cornerback again. We're going to go with Denzel Burke out of Ohio State here. I really thought that they were going to go cornerback after they traded Jeff Okudah. Not really sure why they did that, but it is what it is. I think they go cornerback here just to replace that void. And they do have some very talented cornerbacks here. So again, we had our questions answered through that free agency period, but I do think that they need to get more depth at that position. So we're going to go cornerback there for the Detroit Lions. Let's go now, switch it up a little bit. We're going to go with the edge rusher position here. Now, this is another team that could potentially use a corner. I don't know. It could happen. But we're going to go Laiatu Latu here out of UCLA. Buffalo likes to use their rotation of the defensive linemen, right? So I think that this could be the pick here for that team, right? Whether it's the interior of the defensive line or the edge rushers, they really like to just keep fresh legs and keep attacking, through that stamina that they possess with their really depthy defensive line group. So we're going to go there. 27, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go with the running back here. Let's go with Blake Corum here out of Michigan. Blake Corum, I think, would have been a first-round pick, maybe a high second-round pick if he didn't get hurt this past season, is returning to Michigan in hopes of having another big season, probably chasing another national championship. Actually, chasing their first national championship in a very long time. So I think they're going to go out here, take running back. Look, I understand that the running back position is one where, okay, the market is changing and in a very negative fashion here for the running backs. However, there is value in taking them in the first round because you don't have to pay them that much. You do have the fifth-year option available. You have them for a solid 5 years. So there is still value in taking that position here in the first round. And right now you have Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift, both on one-year contracts. I don't imagine that they sign both of them back, so it's going to be important to keep that run game strong there in Philadelphia, which they are heavily reliant on. Now here for the New York Jets, that's interesting. The Packers? Oh, yes, because they traded the pick. Okay, I completely brain farted. Let's take a look at the options here because really I didn't have a pick prepared for this. I actually had the Jets because I forgot that they exchanged picks and all. So I do think that they continue to go on the defensive side of the ball. So let's just take a look at what options are here. Early on in the draft, we took Kalen Bullock, the safety out of USC. What do they go ahead and do here? I think that they're going to try and find some depth somewhere. I think maybe we could work at that nose tackle spot potentially. I just don't know if there's a lot of value in taking someone there. So, yeah, let's go with Leonard Taylor because you look at that inside linebacker spot, right? I think you have your guys there. Same with the cornerback spot. You address the safety spot. Your edge rushers, right? You go 3 deep now with Lucas Van Ness. So I think we could work on that interior defensive line spot. So let's go with Leonard Taylor here out of Miami. And again, that is because of the Aaron Rodgers trade. Totally forgot to put that into effect. So my mistake on that. But we're going to go with Leonard Taylor there as they continue to take defensive players in the first round and refuse to take anyone on offense unless your name is Jordan Love. Okay, here for the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to go running back here as well. Let's go with Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin. This is another player that has been so good, even since he came out of high school. Was already the starting running back for the Wisconsin Badgers when he was 19 years old, which is just absolutely ridiculous, and has been one of the more consistent backs in college football. And I think that this is going to be good, especially if they can keep Tony Pollard, right? You're going to get a younger version of Ezekiel Elliott as well, and so they're going to have that change of pace at running back again. But, again, Allen's going to be that physical, hard running back that's going to get you the the difficult yards, while Pollard's going to be that explosive player that, players are going to have a hard time adjusting to that change of pace. So I think that could be a good duo right there. Very talented backfield with Pollard and Allen. Here for the Kansas City Chiefs, let's continue to go after that defensive line, right? You got Karlaftis, Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Let's go ahead and take Mason Smith here out of LSU, pair someone else up with Chris Jones. Derek Nottie has really just been all right for this football team, so let's go and get another guy in there for the defensive line. 31, here we have the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to go tackle here just because they lost Mike McGlinchey this past offseason, and that really wasn't a huge loss. But we're going to go with Blake Fisher, another tackle here from Notre Dame to go along with Joe Alt. So we're going to go and do that. Now, do they replace their former Notre Dame tackle with another one? I don't know. Maybe they'll be too scared to do that, and I really wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Kingsley Suamataia goes there. So, again, but they just need to protect whoever it is at quarterback, whether it's Darnold, whether it's Purdy, whether it's Lance. No one knows. Heck, maybe it's Josh Johnson, I don't know, at 38 years old. And then finally here, our last pick, we're going to go wide receiver here. We're going to go Adonai Mitchell. I'm not going to click it just before all of this resets, but Adonai Mitchell, right, again, and why are they going wide receiver here? Don't know if Tyler Boyd's coming back, right? T. Higgins still needs an extension, so we'll see what that wide receiver group looks like when the offseason comes around. Again, it's a way too early mock draft. So many factors still need to play out that we are very unsure of. So we're going to go with Adonai Mitchell here for the Cincinnati Bengals with our final pick here in the first round. And are we going to get to see our results? Yes, we are. Okay. So here's what it looks like right here. I'm going to make my face smaller because we don't really want to see that right now. Okay, so this is what our review of the first round 2024 way too early mock draft looks like. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. And again, for continuous and constant NFL draft class content, this is going to be the channel for you. Consider subscribing, and until then, I will see you guys all later. Peace.